Despite her small stature, she was bursting with personality.
When she walked in a room, she completely transformed the space.
She was just the spotlight. Whenever she was around, everybody's attention was on her.
She loved her family. She had a boyfriend who her family embraced.
He was genuinely a good dude.
But when she suddenly goes missing, her loved ones fear the worst.
I knew something was wrong.
We tried calling, texting, asking people if they'd seen or heard from her, but nobody gave us anything.
There was a secret cell phone.
There was a text saying, "I'm dying."
Investigators struggle to retrace her steps before it's too late.
There's only one other customer when her phone pinged from that location.
We were able to see the Jeep traveling along the same route as her phone.
Was she simply left behind?
What did you apologize for? For leaving her? Yeah.
Or had she come face to face with pure evil?
These are the traits of a true psychopath.
He was pretending. It was very bizarre.
Teenagers, they can be very emotional. The person that she ended up encountering just had terrible motives.
January 24th, 2018. It's a brisk winter morning for citizens in the riverside town of Spring Valley, Illinois.
Spring Valley is more of like a farm town. There's not really much big out there.
It's about 100 miles west of Chicago, only about 5,000 people. So if you can imagine, everybody knows everybody.
There's a lot of families that live there that have lived there for generations. Overall, it's just a good place to live.
But at 7 a.m., the Bradley family is growing concerned. 16-year-old Diamond Bradley has seemingly disappeared.
Diamond, baby?
Her mother, Doris, goes into Diamond's bedroom to look for her, and she realizes Diamond isn't there.
Doris's older son, Daquan, had made plans to hang out with his sister, Diamond, that day. And so he shows up at Doris's home looking for Diamond.
Hey, where's Diamond?
I don't know.
I had talked to Diamond the day before, and she was like, hey, we should hang out tomorrow. Whenever I had the opportunity to spend time with her, I always spent time with her. I mean, she was you just wanted to be around her all the time.
And I kind of start worrying because it's getting late in the morning. I said, she usually texts me by now. Then I started texting and trying to call her phone, but her phone kept going to voicemail.
She's not answering me. Can you try to call her? Maybe she'll answer for you.
Nothing. There's voicemail.
Hours go by, and they still haven't heard from Diamond. At this point, they don't know if she's been in an accident or even worse.
We started reaching out to her friends and, people she, talked to.
I'm asking everybody, and everybody no, we haven't seen her. I've been texting and nothing.
So Doris decides around 6:30 p.m. to call the Spring Valley Police to report her daughter missing.
Yes. I'd like to file a missing persons report.
At roughly 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, 16-year-old Diamond Bradley was a petite package bursting with personality.
She looked younger than what her age was, but it didn't really impact her. It was just people would be like, oh, that little girl.
Diamond was a light in so many people's lives. When she walked in a room, she completely transformed the space.
She was very outgoing. She was very just the spotlight. Whenever Diamond was around, everybody's attention was on her.
Diamond personality, when you're sad, she made you happy. She always had a bright smile on her face. She loved dancing. She loved singing.
She loved music, no matter what it was. I mean, rock, classic rock, anything. Anything that sounded good to her, she listened to it.
But above all, family came first in Diamond's life.
Diamond had a really good relationship with my mom. If Diamond needed somebody to talk to, my mom was the first person she went to. They were really close.
Every day she would come to my room. She tells me she loves me every day. She was a good girl.
I hung out with Diamond a lot. She was funny, made me laugh all the time. I just loved being around her. Made me happy.
With her younger siblings, they have a problem, they go to her. She was always there for them.
Diamond was the heart and soul of her family.
It was through family that Diamond met her boyfriend, Jason Green.
My mom is friends with his like stepdad. They'd come around a lot, so like he was a part of our family.
There was like an age gap, and he was a little older than her, and I didn't too much like it, but it was okay with me because he hung out at the house.
Hey. Hey, man. How are you? Good. Good. Am I right, Jaya? Sure.
I got along with her boyfriend perfect. He was cool. I liked him.
The fact that Jason got along so well with her family made Diamond that much more in love with him.
You want to stay for dinner, babe? Mama should be done cooking soon.
Yeah, I'm down. Smells good.
With Jason by her side, Diamond had big plans for her future.
She wanted to be a nurse. She wanted to go into the nursing field.
Everybody thought that this would be a really great field for her. She had the personality. She loved to meet people, talk to people, know about them, care for them.
I always told her, you can be or do anything you want to do. You just got to stick with it.
When she set her mind to something, she went after it. And so her family knew that she was going to become this nurse and go out and impact the world.
But now, Diamond's mother is reporting her missing after she seemingly disappeared on the morning of January 24th.
Hello? Yes. I'd like to file a missing persons report.
Investigators immediately respond and come out to speak with Doris.
Once I got there and started talking with Doris, I immediately felt like this was abnormal.
Is her running away, is that normal for her?
No.
No.
She would never run away from home.
No.
I knew something was wrong. I said, that's out of the ordinary with her.
Doris tells detectives that the last time she saw Diamond was the evening before, when the family celebrated her birthday.
My birthday is January 23rd. It was just like family there, and I had a cake, and everybody sang happy birthday to me, and it was just like a normal day.
When the party was over, Diamond was getting ready for bed. It seemed like a night like any other night.
We said goodnight to each other, and then she walked back upstairs, and I went to sleep, and that was the last time I saw my daughter.
And Doris says she found something in her daughter's bedroom that raises more cause for alarm.
Doris tells officers that when she was looking around Diamond's bedroom, she found a cell phone.
That was a big red flag for me because typically teenagers aren't going to go anywhere without their cell phone.
To everyone around her, 16-year-old Diamond Bradley seemed like your typical teenage girl.
She was happy-go-lucky, but Diamond had dreams, and one was she wanted to do nursing.
With the support of her loving family and boyfriend Jason Green, it seemed like Diamond was on track to reach her goals.
Her boyfriend was a little older than her, but he was genuinely a good dude. So like, I didn't care about it.
Like many other teenage girls, she was pushing her boundaries, but was still setting herself up for future success. Her family was very proud of her.
But when Diamond goes missing on the morning of January 24th, 2018, her loved ones are left grasping for answers.
Her mother, Doris, tells investigators that she made a discovery while looking around in Diamond's room for her. She found a cell phone.
That was a big red flag for me because typically teenagers aren't going to go anywhere without their cell phone.
The thing is, I don't think this is Diamond's cell phone. She has a Motorola flip phone.
This phone was an iPhone.
Unfortunately, the phone is locked, so there's not a lot of identifying information.
Do you mind if we take this with us?
Sure.
Doris agrees to allow detectives to take the phone back to their headquarters to see if they can unlock it.
Does Diamond have any maybe close friends or boyfriend that this phone might belong to?
Well, she does have a boyfriend. Jason Green is his name. But he's currently incarcerated.
Jason had recently been arrested on drug charges.
At that time, he was locked up, so I knew she wasn't with him.
Okay. We're going to start working on this immediately. We'll keep you guys updated.
Thank you.
The next morning, detectives start making the rounds with Diamond's other family members and friends. One of the individuals they speak with is Diamond's cousin, Kristen Evans.
They were very close. They weren't just cousins, they were like best friends. So officers decide to question her to see if she can give them any information.
Well, I'm sure she's fine. She's probably just hanging out with one of our friends.
She was not very forthcoming with information. I think that she, at that point, thought that Diamond had just left and went somewhere. And I think she was trying to protect Diamond so that Doris didn't know what was actually going on.
Kristen tells detectives the last time she saw Diamond was on the night of the 23rd, when they were celebrating her Aunt Doris's birthday. After the birthday celebration, Kristen went to hang out with her boyfriend, Winston McBride.
Winston had a sort of interesting relationship with these girls.
Kristen explains that Winston briefly dated her cousin Diamond before they coupled up.
It doesn't matter to me that he had a thing with my cousin. Me and Winston have something special.
Kristen said Diamond and Winston remained friends even after she started dating him.
So you haven't heard from Diamond since the night of the 23rd?
Well, she did send us some texts the next morning.
Winston McBride received a text message from Diamond Bradley around 6:20 in the morning on January 24th.
Diamond sent him a message asking if he wanted to go to IHOP. But immediately after, she sent another message saying she sent it to the wrong person.
Pancakes do sound good, though.
However, 15 minutes later, another, more ominous text came through.
Hey, look at this.
There was a text saying, "I'm dying."
In January of 2018, detectives in Spring Valley, Illinois, are searching for missing 16-year-old Diamond Bradley.
No one had seen her since the evening of her mother's birthday celebration.
But Diamond's cousin, Kristen Evans, says she and her boyfriend Winston received text messages from Diamond on the morning of the 24th. And one of those texts sends alarm bells ringing.
Hey, look at this.
There was a text saying, "I'm dying."
You know, when something is really funny and they say, "I'm dying laughing," we just assume that's what it was. And that's probably what she meant.
But detectives aren't so sure. Eager for more details on the text messages, they bring Winston McBride in for questioning.
Winston agreed to willingly come in and talk to us, and he did seem to have a genuine concern for Diamond's whereabouts.
We're just really hoping you can help us figure out where Diamond is.
Sure. Anything to help.
Winston said he and Diamond had kind of a dating relationship at one point, but he was very adamant that once he learned Diamond's actual age, he ended the relationship.
Winston was 26, 10 years older than Diamond.
Diamond liked older guys. She had this big, vivacious personality. She just wasn't interested in guys her own age.
After that, Winston started dating Diamond's cousin, Kristen Evans.
Was she upset with that? You moving on with her cousin?
Not really. We stay friends.
Winston concedes the text he received from Diamond on the morning of the 24th concerned him.
After Diamond sent him an "I'm dying" text, he responded,
But Winston says he never received any more texts from Diamond.
You mind if we see that thread?
Sure.
The text messages on the phone reflected exactly what Winston had told them.
However, before Winston leaves, he has one more piece of information for investigators.
Wait, did you guys look into her Backpage account?
What Backpage account?
Diamond recently disclosed to him that she made a profile on Backpage. And Backpage is a website where escorts sometimes advertise their services.
Detectives are stunned. This seems out of character for Diamond.
Diamond having a Backpage set off concerns for the police department, as we knew that site was a place where predators try to prey on victims.
After wrapping up their conversation with Winston, detectives confirmed that 16-year-old Diamond did have an account on Backpage.com.
Diamond was strong-willed and she was exploring the world around her.
Teenagers, they can be very emotional, spontaneous, and they're just in a completely different place in the way that they think and the way that their lives are. And it can lead to possibly dangerous situations.
And when investigators unlock the mysterious cell phone Diamond's mother found in her bedroom, its purpose is soon clear.
Diamond had been communicating with men over Backpage through the cell phone.
Investigators become immediately concerned that perhaps one of these men are involved in Diamond's disappearance.
Unfortunately, though, the phone doesn't provide much insight into the men's true identities.
They don't use their real names and were corresponding with her on burner phones.
So detectives are hoping Diamond's other phone, the Motorola flip phone that went missing with her, can provide more clues.
Using that cell phone number, we were able to contact the carrier and get the cellular data records that led us to the trail of where that cell phone had went.
Her phone was near her residence from the night before on January 23rd until approximately 6:51 a.m. on the 24th. Around that time, we start to see the distances change from the tower.
From her home, Diamond's phone travels to a local gas station and stays there for a few minutes before getting back on the road.
The ping map actually shows that Diamond was heading southeast.
Then by 7:18 a.m., all phone activity ceases.
The last ping was in a small town called Tanika, about 20 minutes south of Spring Valley.
At this point, Diamond's phone had been shut off and it had not been turned back on since.
Detectives know that teenage girls are on their phone a lot, and so that really suggests that some foul play might have taken place here.
When they headed to the location in Tanika where Diamond's phone last pinged, they really expected the worst.
But there's still no sign of Diamond or her phone.
Investigators head there to look for Diamond, to look for any sorts of evidence, but there was nothing there that they could find.
With the clock ticking, Spring Valley police decide to enlist the help of federal investigators.
At that point in time, the FBI's kind of like stepped in and helped out with the investigation, and they'll stop by the house and be like, we're still working on it, we'll find her.
In the meantime, Diamond's family takes their own strides to help find their lost loved one.
We started, maybe we should get it out there. If you've seen her, please let me know. And then that's when we got to making the flyers.
They put them all over Spring Valley, and lots of tips are coming into the Spring Valley Police Department.
We had a very large number of people call in trying to help and having information. Everything that we received is information we took very seriously.
Unfortunately, all of these tips end up to be dead ends.
But on January 27th, a call comes in to 911 dispatchers that will shift the course of the entire investigation.
Come to the sheriff's office.
Yes, ma'am. I guess I'm going to need a deputy.
The 911 caller says he was driving along a rural road and spots something that's pretty alarming.
He got out of his vehicle to see what was in the ditch, and what he saw was shocking.
I saw the body, female, young.
Approximately how old?
High school age.
It's a human body matching the description of Diamond Bradley.
On January 27, 2018, Illinois police have just received word that a body matching the description of missing teenager Diamond Bradley has been located in a rural area just 10 minutes away from her Spring Valley home.
I saw the body, female, young.
Approximately how old?
High school age.
We went to where the body was located, which was in a rural area in Putnam County, which would be to the south of Spring Valley.
As soon as Spring Valley police arrive on the scene and look at the body, there's no doubt that this is Diamond.
That's got to be her.
Yeah.
It appeared that Diamond's death had been violent. She had been stabbed multiple times.
She had multiple lacerations on her body, on her neck. She had multiple defense wounds, which clearly indicated that, she fought. She fought hard. She did not go easy. It's beyond heartbreaking. She hadn't even, started living her life yet, and it was taken in a very violent way.
Spring Valley officer Adam Curran prepares to give Diamond's family the tragic news.
Unfortunately, I was given the task of notifying Doris Bradley and her family of the death of Diamond Bradley. Death notifications are never easy because you're going into someone's residence and you're going to break their heart. And that's not something we as police officers want to do. We don't want to break someone's heart.
Good afternoon, Miss Bradley. Can I come inside?
Of course.
The police officer came to the house, and then that's when they told me that they found her. I broke down, and yeah, it was a pretty rough night. Can I take a break?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I hear crying. At first, I thought it was Diamond. I'm like, oh, thank God they found her. And then I just see my mom. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, what's going on?
What happened? We found Diamond.
At first, I didn't believe it. And to be honest with you, I kind of blacked out. So.
With emotions high, detectives are more determined than ever to solve this case and bring Diamond's killer to justice. But a lack of evidence at the scene is making their job difficult.
Any luck locating the knife?
Nope. The murder weapon was not present at the scene. There was no other evidence at the scene of who had done this to Diamond. It was a rural area. There was no security cameras.
But detectives know that there's another location that will have security cameras. The gas station Diamond's phone pinged at on the morning she was killed.
Investigators contacted that gas station and were able to get their hands on surveillance footage from inside the gas station.
Unfortunately, there's no sign of Diamond in the footage on the morning of the 24th.
But there's only one other customer there at the same time that Diamond's phone pinged from that location.
The customer pulls into the parking lot, driving a black Jeep.
He comes into the gas station and buys a pack of cigarettes before leaving.
And when he leaves the gas station, it's at the same time Diamond's phone starts heading southeast.
Along the route that Diamond's phone had gone, police were able to determine that there were several other security cameras.
We find the same vehicle, which was a black Jeep Wrangler.
we were able to see the Jeep traveling along the same route that Diamond's cell phone was traveling. But at no time was the license plate of that Jeep visible. So we compiled a list from the Secretary of State of all the black Jeeps in the area. Then we started going to find all the registered owners.
After several dead ends, investigators end up in the small town of Standard, Illinois.
Standard is one of the closest towns to the rural area where Diamond's body was discovered.
We were on our way to the post office to see if anybody would be willing to talk to us or knew of anywhere in Standard, being that it's a very small town, where this black Jeep could be. And we saw a black Jeep. I mean, it was just so coincidental. So we turned and we went to that house to talk to somebody about the black Jeep.
Investigators walk around the vehicle, they're examining it, and as far as they can tell, it appears to be an exact match to the vehicle that was seen in their surveillance footage.
We approached the house and we knocked on the door to try to make contact with somebody inside the residence.
Hello, sir. Is this your vehicle?
Yes.
A young man answers the door and identifies himself as the owner of the vehicle, Richard Henderson.
And Richard looks familiar to detectives.
We recognized him as the male that had been on video at the gas station.
Investigators believed that these were in fact the same individuals.
One week after 16-year-old Diamond Bradley was found stabbed to death, Illinois police have finally made contact with a major person of interest.
His name is Richard Henderson. He and his Jeep can be found on surveillance following the exact same path that Diamond's cell phone was on the morning she disappeared.
We asked if that was his Jeep. He confirmed that it was.
He seems to be cooperative, friendly, forthcoming.
He did have somewhat of a Russian accent. He had mentioned that he was born in West Virginia and moved to Russia.
When investigators ask Richard to accompany them to headquarters, he continues to be cooperative.
Got a couple of questions for you if you'd like to come down to the station. That's okay.
Sure.
He said that he had no problem going to the police department.
In an interrogation room, detectives begin questioning Richard about the morning of January 24th.
Investigators asked him if he had been in Spring Valley on the morning of January 24th, 2018, around 6:30 in the morning. Mr. Henderson admitted that he was.
He admits that it's him in the gas station surveillance footage.
Okay, so you first go get your cigarettes. Yes, sir. Then what do you do?
And then I pick her up.
And her is?
Diamond.
To their surprise, he pretty quickly admits to being with Diamond that morning.
He first met up with Diamond early on that morning behind the gas station. She was going to help Richard score some Molly.
Hi. I'm Diamond.
Richard.
How long have you actually been in contact with Diamond in terms of that you've known her?
Not long at all.
Richard tells police that he met Diamond online and that they met up that morning and they drove around for about a half hour trying to score some Molly.
At one point, they went to a trailer park for drugs in Granville, which is near Standard.
According to Richard, Diamond knew someone at this trailer park that was going to sell them the drugs.
I took her to the trailer park.
This is where Richard's story gets kind of murky. He claims that he just up and left her at this trailer park, which seems kind of odd.
Richard claims he texted Diamond later that evening to apologize.
What did you apologize for?
Leaving?
For leaving her?
Yeah.
But detectives aren't buying Richard's story.
We knew his story was a lie because Diamond Bradley's phone never pinged near city of Granville.
There's nothing going over there in the Granville trailer court. I can assure you that. Okay? You need to be honest with us so we can somewhat understand what happened. You're not being completely truthful.
Richard continues to deny everything. He stays cool. He doesn't seem to be getting anxious or nervous.
You didn't go to that trailer court at all, did you?
No, sir, I went to the left of the thing. Sorry for lying.
Listen to me. Listen to me.
I feel like I'm getting accused of something.
Just relax.
Richard was asked by investigators if he would take us through his route of travel on the day that he picked up Diamond.
You'd be willing to show us where you picked her up at and all that other good stuff?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You'd be willing?
I would.
They followed the path of Diamond's cell phone, the path that we knew her cell phone traveled, and eventually ended up in Putnam County on the road that her body was discovered.
Officers proceeded to show him a memorial the family had made for Diamond at the scene.
After Richard saw the memorial, he broke down.
It's all right. Take your time, Rich.
Investigators confront Richard again. What happened between him and Diamond?
It went south. That's all right, Richard. Okay? We just want to know exactly how it went, Richard.
It was at this point that Mr. Henderson started to break down and finally started his confession.
Richard admits he did kill Diamond, but he says it was not a murder. According to Richard, he killed Diamond in self-defense.
Richard admits the main reason he met up with Diamond on January 24th was to have sex.
What were you guys going to do after? Did you talk of that?
We were going to do some Molly.
You go have sex and do Molly after?
Richard tells investigators that he and Diamond were driving in a rural section of Putnam County. He says that they pull over to the side of the road to have sex.
And then after everything, I asked her to step out of the vehicle.
Okay.
So I could get out of the vehicle.
Richard says that's when a disagreement arose over the Molly.
Where are the drugs?
No, I'm not giving you it. The whole argument started because you didn't want to give her the rest of your Molly. You want to keep that for yourself?
Yes, sir.
And according to Richard, the argument quickly escalated.
She pulled the knife.
Why did she pull the knife at this point? Did you say something to her?
I told her she wasn't getting any Molly.
Richard said that after she pulled out the knife, he kicked her in the hand that was holding the knife.
I kick it.
You kick it.
I kick her hand.
During the struggle, Richard says the knife pierced Diamond's stomach.
Richard says at this point he tried to help Diamond and pull the knife from her stomach.
I pulled it from her.
Okay.
Richard claims Diamond started coming at him again.
He said eventually he overpowered her and he stabbed her multiple times in self-defense.
I was flailing at him.
Just swinging your arms around?
Yes, sir.
And Richard, let me ask you this. Did you get her in the back a couple times? Like when she was walking away from you? Like her legs, her back?
No, sir.
No. You didn't stab her there?
No.
Okay. How does she end up being in the ditch?
I push her.
After that, Richard says he fled the scene.
Did you went back to your Jeep? Is that what you did? Or did you take off walking?
I drove off.
Detectives already know Richard's story is full of holes.
His story was so preposterous.
Richard only admits to stabbing Diamond a couple of times. However, the autopsy results proved that Diamond had actually been stabbed more than 20 times. The autopsy also shows that Diamond was stabbed in the back.
Those injuries did not corroborate with someone who was defending themselves.
Richard was over 6 foot and he was well built. The size difference alone, he would have been very able to overpower her or to walk away from her.
Based on the evidence, we had enough to charge Richard Henderson with first-degree murder.
And as investigators prepare to face Richard Henderson in court, they'll discover he's even more deceitful than they thought.
During the investigation, they continue to uncover more and more about Richard.
What?
He, in fact, never resided in Russia, and the accent that he was using was not an actual accent. It was very bizarre.
These are the traits of a true psychopath.
In February of 2018, Illinois investigators finally have 16-year-old Diamond Bradley's killer, Richard Henderson, in custody. But the shocking revelations in this case don't stop there.
What?
When detectives first interviewed Richard, he claimed to be from Russia and spoke with a subtle Russian accent.
It was later found out that he, in fact, never resided in Russia. He never had been to Russia, and the accent that he was using was not an actual accent. He was pretending. It was very bizarre.
When talking with his family, they learned that this was within character for Richard. He would actually often also use a South African accent. His family thought that maybe he did this to try to seem more interesting.
Regardless, Richard has no criminal history or history of mental illness.
When they announced who he was, I could remember a lot of people saying that they knew him, people I worked with. It was like, we knew him. He didn't come off as that type of person like that. And I'm like, well, looks can be very deceiving.
When my sister's murderer was found, I felt a sense of relief. But at the same time, I can't be relieved because one, she's still gone. Two, just because they found him doesn't mean he's going to get convicted.
However, investigators are determined to see that Richard faces the consequences for what he did to Diamond Bradley. They begin to build a timeline of what they believe really happened on the morning of January 24th.
Police believe that Diamond met Richard on Backpage and that they had made plans to meet that morning.
He was knowingly preying on a teenage girl.
Richard picked her up near her home, drove her into Putnam County to a rural road where they had sex, and some type of argument may have broken out.
They were unsure if the argument spurred over a disagreement about drugs, like Richard claimed, or about something else.
But investigators are certain of one thing.
At some point, Richard made a conscious decision to kill Diamond Bradley.
Police know that Richard did attack Diamond with a knife. He stabbed her more than 20 times, including in the neck and of the back. There was no way that this attack could count as self-defense.
After she was dead, he took her phone and shut it off somewhere around the Tanika area. Richard would never admit where he disposed of it.
Based on the timeline, investigators believe the text Winston received from Diamond on the morning of the 24th was completely unrelated.
The text that she had sent to Winston saying, "I'm dying," actually had nothing to do with the crime.
Based on her injuries, I don't think that she would have been able to physically send the text saying, "I'm dying." I think it was just coincidental that that was a text message that was sent.
As the evidence against Richard Henderson continues to mount, he begins to feel the heat.
I got a phone call from the state's attorney's office saying that he wanted to plead out.
They'll take life off the table if he gives them a guilty plea.
Diamond's family welcomes the opportunity to avoid a lengthy trial.
I said, I really don't want a trial. I said, because I don't know if I could handle much more of this.
If we would have just kept going, we would have had to keep going to court for more months.
Let her rest in peace. I don't want her name out here like that. So I accepted that. I just wanted to move on with my life and leave all that behind and just leave it alone.
Mr. Henderson admitted his guilt and confessed to the murder of Diamond Bradley.
He's sentenced to 53 years in prison.
I was very content with the 53 years because it's 53 years without parole. So if he lived that long and get out, he has nothing.
Diamond's family hopes that by sharing her story, their good memories of her can live on.
Like people saying stuff about my sister and, trying to kind of slandering her name a little bit. I just really want people to just, let my sister rest in peace. She was a good person. She meant the world to a lot of people.
Diamond had a joy for life. She was like any typical teenage girl, just wanting to have fun. And it's just sad and unfortunate that the person that she ended up encountering just had terrible motives.
All 16-year-olds make decisions that might not lead them into the best circumstances.
Ain't nobody on this earth perfect, but this is her story. She had a heart, and that's what I want people to know.
In the morning on January 30th, he had stopped behind an unoccupied, disabled vehicle with its hazard lights flashing on the shoulder of Interstate 540. He ran the registration and the vehicle returned to Pastor Robert Reeves. Across the highway, the trooper had also observed a white vehicle matching the description of Latrice's car. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Pastor Reeves's cellular phone records and discovered that the blocked, threatening calls to Stephen and Velma had been placed from the pastor's phone. Stephen also revealed to detectives that Reeves had previously made highly inappropriate sexual advances toward him, offering him free rent in exchange for sexual favors, which Stephen had rejected. It became clear that Pastor Reeves harbored a pathological, jealous obsession with his young roommate. The forensic analysis solidified the case. The deoxyribonucleic acid recovered from the steering wheel of Latrice's car was a match for Robert Reeves. While the defense argued at trial that the presence of Stephen's deoxyribonucleic acid under Latrice's fingernails pointed to him as the killer, the prosecution successfully argued that this was the result of their intimate encounter earlier that evening. The defense also attempted to explain away the presence of the pastor's deoxyribonucleic acid in Latrice's car as transfer deoxyribonucleic acid, but the sheer volume of material, combined with the scratches on his arms and his vehicle's presence at the scene, rendered this theory highly implausible. The trial of Robert Reeves concluded in October of 2009. The prosecution successfully demonstrated that Pastor Reeves, consumed by a desperate, repressed infatuation with Stephen, systematically targeted any woman associated with a young athlete. He had stalked Latrice from his home, forced or convinced her to pull over on the interstate, and brutally murdered her in a frantic attempt to eliminate her from Stephen's life. Robert Reeves was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This final case highlights the profound danger of psychological projection and compartmentalization. Robert Reeves lived a double life, maintaining a respected public persona as a spiritual leader while privately harboring obsessive, predatory desires. His inability to accept Stephen's heterosexual relationships drove him to commit an act of extreme violence against an innocent young woman who was merely a bystander in his internal conflict. Reflecting upon these three investigations, we are reminded of the critical importance of recognizing the early warning signs of obsessive control and possessiveness in relationships. In each instance, refusal to accept the boundaries and autonomy of another individual led to an escalation of violence that shattered multiple lives. The successful resolution of these cases stands as a testament to the meticulous, tireless efforts of the forensic scientists, investigators, and community members who refused to let these tragedies go unanswered, ensuring that truth prevailed and justice was served. The human mind is a complex and often delicate tapestry woven with threads of affection, desire, and the fundamental need for connection. In its healthiest state, love represents the peak of human virtue, offering protection, warmth, and mutual growth. However, when the delicate balance of the psyche is disrupted by the dark forces of jealousy, control, and obsessive infatuation, the very emotions that should preserve life can twist into instruments of absolute destruction. As investigators and students of human behavior, we are frequently called to examine the debris of these broken lives, not merely to document the tragic loss of innocent victims, but to understand the psychological pathways that lead to such catastrophic choices. By analyzing these narratives with clinical objectivity and profound empathy, we can seek to illuminate the warning signs of obsessive behavior, celebrate the tireless dedication of law enforcement officers, and affirm the ultimate triumph of justice over malice. The first narrative takes us to the tranquil community of Little Elm, Texas. During the winter of 2004, it was a place where neighbors knew one another, and the presence of a local police officer on patrol was a source of comfort rather than concern. Among those who called this suburb home was Denise Miller, a 36-year-old mother of 2 children who was searching for a fresh start. Denise had experienced the painful dissolution of her early marriage, which had begun with high hopes during her college years and produced 2 wonderful children, a daughter named Whitney and a son named Walter. In the wake of her divorce in 1995, Denise had packed up her life and relocated from Kansas City, Missouri, to the Dallas suburb of Little Elm, hoping to build a beautiful, secure life for her family. By all accounts, she was succeeding. She had secured a lucrative position with a regional beverage distributor, managed her finances with great skill, and constructed a beautiful, modern home where her children could thrive. Yet, despite her material success, Denise harbored a deep longing for a partner to share her achievements. That desire seemed to be answered in 2003 when a knock sounded at her front door. Standing on her porch was Wayne Irby, a 37-year-old police officer with the Little Elm Police Department. Wayne was a 6-year veteran of the force, a large, imposing man who wore his dedication to the badge with pride. He was known among his colleagues as someone who bled blue, demonstrating an unwavering passion for protecting his beat and engaging with the community. On that particular afternoon, Wayne had noticed Denise's garage door remained open, presenting a potential target for neighborhood opportunistic thieves. He politely advised her to close it, handed her his business card, and left a lasting impression. It was not long before Wayne returned, this time driven by personal interest. Rather than professional duty, he invited Denise to dinner, and the chemistry between them was immediate and powerful. Within a short time, they became an exclusive couple. To the casual observer, they appeared to be the perfect family unit. Wayne, a divorced father himself, bonded exceptionally well with Denise's children, who quickly came to view him as a parental figure. However, beneath the surface of this idyllic romance, dangerous psychological currents were beginning to swirl. Denise possessed a highly sensitive emotional structure, one that was easily triggered by perceived threats to her security. Wayne was a highly gregarious and attractive man, popular both on and off his beat, and his friendly nature was frequently misinterpreted by Denise as infidelity. This lack of trust began to manifest in constant accusations and intense arguments. In the science of criminal psychology, we recognize this as a classic pattern of anxious attachment, where one partner's fear of abandonment leads to hypervigilance and controlling behaviors. Wayne vehemently denied any wrongdoing, feeling increasingly suffocated by Denise's demands for constant reassurance. By the spring of 2004, the couple attempted to put their trust issues aside, eventually purchasing a home together. Yet, cohabitation only intensified the friction. The physical proximity magnified their differences, and the arguments escalated until Wayne made the decision to end the relationship, moving into a modest rental home across town. The separation was deeply painful for Denise, marked by tears and intense emotional distress. However, when Denise unexpectedly lost her employment in November of that year, Wayne's compassionate nature prevailed. Concern for the welfare of Denise and her children, he agreed to reconcile, hoping they could work through their issues under one roof once more. This reconciliation, unfortunately, did not address the underlying psychological pathology of their dynamic. On December 10th, 2004, the fragile peace shattered. The alarm was raised at 6 in the morning when Officer Wayne Irby failed to report for his morning briefing at the Little Elm Police Department. For a dedicated officer who was invariably early and meticulously reliable, this absence was an immediate cause for concern. His colleagues tried to reach him by phone, but their calls went unanswered. As the hours passed, the anxiety within the department grew, prompting the police chief to dispatch officers to conduct a welfare check at the home Wayne shared with Denise. When the officers arrived, they found a quiet, empty house. No vehicles were parked in the driveway, and the doors were securely locked. Seeking information, investigators located Denise's children, who revealed they had not seen their mother or Wayne in nearly 24 hours. Furthermore, Denise's daughter, Whitney, recounted a highly unusual phone call she had received from her mother. Around midnight, Denise had claimed she was running errands, told her daughter that she loved her, and instructed the children to prepare themselves for school. In the morning, this detached, formal sign-off was entirely out of character for the devoted mother, sending a chill through the investigators. Fearing that Wayne and Denise had met with foul play, Wayne's partner, Detective Jerry Walker, alongside Officer James Wynn, decided to search the rental property Wayne had recently vacated across town. Obtaining a key from the property manager, they entered the quiet residence, calling out Wayne's name. In the kitchen, they made an ominous discovery: Wayne's personal fanny pack and his mobile phone were resting on the counter. For an off-duty police officer, leaving behind such essential personal items was highly abnormal. Moving cautiously down the hallway, Officer Wynn rounded a corner and suddenly stopped, instructing his partner to remain back. Lying on the floor was the lifeless body of Wayne Irby. He had been killed by a single gunshot wound to the center of the back of his head. The trajectory of the bullet indicated that he had been completely caught off guard, never seeing his assailant. The scene was devoid of any signs of a struggle or physical violence, suggesting a sudden, cold execution. The immediate question that haunted the investigators was the whereabouts of Denise Miller. Was she another victim of a ruthless killer, or was she the perpetrator of this horrific act? As the Texas Rangers and county sheriffs began processing the scene, they expanded their search to Denise's primary residence. In the master bedroom, they discovered a handwritten note from Denise. The contents of the letter were highly distressing, indicating a woman who was in deep emotional pain and contemplating ending her own life. Even more alarming, investigators discovered that Wayne's service uniform was hanging in the closet. His duty belt was on the wall, but his service holster was empty. His .40 caliber handgun was missing. The evidence began to point toward a grim scenario. On the kitchen island of Wayne's rental home, crime scene investigators discovered a second handwritten note, unmistakably written by Denise. It read, "I am sorry I took both of our lives. Please contact our moms." This note was a direct confession of a double tragedy, suggesting that Denise had killed the man she loved and had departed to end her own life as well. The search for Denise became a race against time, driven by the fear that she was armed, highly unstable, and potentially a danger to anyone she encountered. At 4 a.m. on December 11, 2004, the search reached its dramatic conclusion at a hotel in the nearby city of Gainesville, Texas. A night manager had received an urgent, slurred phone call from a guest in one of the rooms. Upon investigating, the manager found the deadbolt locked, necessitating the assistance of a maintenance worker to force the door open. Inside the darkened room, they made a shocking discovery. Denise Miller was lying on the floor in a fetal position, covered in blood, semi-conscious, and slurring her words. Beside her lay a .25 caliber handgun. She had sustained a severe gunshot wound to her head, just above her eye. Emergency! Medical technicians rushed her to a local trauma center where she clung to life by a thread. As investigators processed the hotel room, they found a bottle of alcohol over the counter sleeping pills, and Wayne's missing .40 caliber service pistol.
A
Close examination of the service weapon revealed why Denise had used the smaller .25 caliber handgun instead. She had attempted to load the .40 caliber pistol with the cartridges inserted backwards, causing the mechanism to
jump.
In her desperation, she had turned to the smaller caliber weapon to carry out her self-inflicted injury. In the hotel room, detectives also recovered a third, much longer note written by Denise. This letter introduced a puzzling complication into the narrative, as she wrote that she had accidentally shot Wayne, panicked, and fled. Was this a genuine accident, or was it a desperate attempt to rationalize an act of ultimate malice in her final moments? When Texas Ranger Tracy Murphy interviewed Denise in her hospital bed later that afternoon, he encountered a profound psychological phenomenon. Denise was capable of speech, but she had absolutely no memory of the shooting. When told that Wayne was dead, she reacted with genuine shock and denial, insisting that he was still alive. In psychological terms, this is often recognized as hysterical amnesia or psychogenic amnesia, a defense mechanism where the ego completely blocks out a highly traumatic event that it cannot reconcile with its self-image. However, some investigators remained skeptical, wondering if the memory loss was merely a convenient legal strategy. As Denise underwent months of intensive physical therapy and rehabilitation, her injuries left her paralyzed on one side of her body and blind in one eye.
On
July 10, 2006, she was deemed competent to stand trial.
The
prosecution presented a compelling case to the jury, arguing that Denise's actions were driven by an obsessive, jealous need for control. When Wayne attempted to sever the relationship permanently, Denise had traveled to his rental home armed with her stepfather's .25 caliber handgun, which she had taken from his residence. The critical forensic evidence that dismantled the defense's theory of an accidental shooting was the mechanical testing of the .25 caliber handgun. The state crime lab demonstrated that the weapon's trigger required between 4.5 and 5 pounds of pressure to discharge completely, refuting the claim that it had gone off by accident. Furthermore, the location of the wound to the back of Wayne's head, combined with Denise's failure to summon medical assistance and her subsequent flight, painted a clear picture of premeditation. On July 12, 2006, the jury returned a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, the defense appealed to the jury's sympathy, pointing to Denise's frail, wheelchair-bound condition. While she was spared the death penalty, the jury sentenced her to 63 years in prison, ensuring that she would spend the remainder of her life reflecting on the tragic consequences of her obsessive love. The second narrative shifts our focus to the bustling city of Houston, Texas in March of 2007. This case highlights the tragic intersection of youthful promise and possessive, violent control. The victim was Tanisha Stewart, a brilliant 19-year-old college freshman who had recently earned a prestigious academic scholarship to Texas Agricultural and Mechanical University. Tanisha was a shining star in her family, a young woman who had overcome the hardships of growing up in one of Houston's most challenging neighborhoods and losing her father at a tender age. She was known for her infectious smile, her dedication to her studies, and her independent spirit. In May of 2005, while employed at a local pizza restaurant, 17-year-old Tanisha met Timothy Shepard, a 25-year-old coworker. Despite the 8-year age gap, Timothy pursued Tanisha with great persistence, eventually winning her affection. He made a concerted effort to ingratiate himself with her family, helping her mother with household chores and repairs. And they welcomed him into their lives like a son. However, when Tanisha relocated to the university campus, 2 hours away from Houston, the dynamic of their relationship began to shift. Tanisha was exposed to a broader world of academic intellectual challenges and social opportunities. She began to develop a strong sense of independence, which deeply threatened Timothy's fragile ego. In psychology, we often observe that a controlling partner's possessiveness intensifies when they perceive their source of emotional validation is slipping away. Timothy's behavior became increasingly erratic and domineering, characterized by constant harassing phone calls and unannounced visits to her college campus. During the spring of 2006, the relationship had fractured, and Timothy briefly rekindled an association with a former girlfriend. Though they eventually reconciled, the trust was broken. When Tanisha returned home for spring break in March of 2007, she was determined to enjoy her time with friends and was secretly planning to transition away from Timothy entirely. She had begun a promising relationship with a 19-year-old college student named Mark Marks, who treated her with the respect she deserved. On Sunday, March 18, 2007, Tanisha's sister, Gayla Taylor, received a frantic call from their mother. Tanisha had failed to show up for a highly anticipated concert with her friends, and her mobile phone was accepting no calls. The family immediately felt a deep, instinctive dread. They contacted Timothy Shepard, who claimed he had last seen Tanisha on Thursday morning when she abruptly walked out of his apartment after an argument. When investigators questioned Timothy, he maintained his story with calm resolve, even granting written consent for officers to search his apartment. Finding no initial signs of foul play, police turned their attention to Marks. However, Mark cooperated fully, demonstrating a rock-solid alibi as he had been traveling with friends at South Padre Island during the time of Tanisha's disappearance. As the days passed without any trace of the young woman, the community rallied to search the wooded areas surrounding Timothy's apartment complex. Neighbors began reporting highly unusual observations to the investigators. They noted that Timothy had spent the entire weekend following Tanisha's disappearance, engaged in continuous, intense outdoor cooking on 2 separate grills. The smoke had been so voluminous that local firefighters had been dispatched to the scene, where Timothy claimed he was preparing food for a massive church gathering of nearly 200 people. Furthermore, a neighbor reported seeing Timothy scrubbing his patio with a massive quantity of bleach, the fumes of which were strong enough to sting the eyes of onlookers. Desperate for answers, Tanisha's sister contacted Quannell X, a prominent and highly respected community activist in Houston who is known for facilitating the peaceful surrender of suspects. Quannell, who had also been contacted by Timothy's family to protect him from potential police misconduct, agreed to meet with Timothy privately at his apartment. The encounter took place in the privacy of Timothy's bathroom, where the suspect was visibly trembling with anxiety. Quannell, utilizing his deep understanding of human psychology, looked Timothy directly in the eyes and urged him to speak the truth. Under the weight of his own conscience and Quannell's steady gaze, Timothy's resolve collapsed. He confessed that when Tanisha had refused to answer his questions about her new relationship, he had flown into a furious rage, attacked her as she tried to leave, and strangled her to death. Timothy initially claimed he had placed her body in a local apartment dumpster. Quannell immediately contacted Detective Sidney Miller, and they rushed to the location. Tragically, the dumpster had been emptied just hours prior, and the waste had been transferred to a massive regional landfill. A search of the landfill was deemed logistically impossible, leaving the investigators without a body to secure a conviction. However, the dedicated crime scene investigation team refused to let the lack of a primary recovery site deter their quest for justice. They conducted a meticulous, microscopic forensic sweep of Timothy's apartment. In the kitchen, they made a horrifying discovery: tiny bone fragments and a piece of tooth. Enamel were recovered from the garbage disposal unit. Forensic analysts confirmed that the enamel belonged to Tanisha Stewart. This physical evidence, combined with the testimony of neighbors and firefighters, revealed a terrifying reality. Timothy had not placed Tanisha's body in the dumpster as he had initially claimed. Instead, he had systematically dismembered and incinerated her remains using his patio smoker and grill, attempting to erase every trace of her existence. On September 29, 2008, the trial of Timothy Shepard began. The prosecution faced the immense hurdle of securing a murder conviction. Without a complete body, a task that required presenting an airtight chain of circumstantial and forensic evidence. The state's case was bolstered by the dramatic testimony of Quannell X, who recounted Timothy's confession, and the devastating testimony of Timothy's own cousin, Nicholas Shepard. Nicholas revealed that Timothy had previously threatened that if Tanisha ever tried to leave him, he would cut her up and boil her. During the sentencing phase, Timothy took the stand in a desperate bid for leniency, claiming he had acted in self-defense after Tanisha attacked him with a knife, and that he had blacked out during the struggle. However, the jury was entirely unmoved by his attempts to defame the victim. Confronted with the sheer brutality of his actions and the clinical reality of his attempts to destroy the evidence, the jury sentenced Timothy Shepard to 99 years in prison, bringing a solemn measure of peace to Tanisha's grieving family. The third narrative transports us to Raleigh, North Carolina, in January of 2008. This case represents a deeply disturbing study of compartmentalized psychology, where a prominent and seemingly righteous community leader harbored a dark, obsessive double life. The victim was Latrice Curtis, a beautiful 21-year-old college student at North Carolina Central University. Latrice was a vibrant, ambitious young woman who had been married for just 9 months to her college sweetheart, Darren Curtis. On the cold morning of January 30, 2008, commuters traveling along Interstate 540 made a gruesome discovery. Lying in the grass off the shoulder of the busy highway was the body of a young woman. She had been brutally assaulted, sustaining over 40 stab wounds to her face, neck, and torso. Her injuries were so severe that her vocal cords and major blood vessels had been severed. Just a half-mile down the road, Darren Curtis, who was commuting to his workplace, spotted his wife's white sedan parked on the shoulder of the highway, with its hazard lights flashing. Returning to the nearby crime scene, his worst fears were confirmed. The woman under the blue tarp was his beloved Latrice. The sheer violence of the attack suggested a crime of intense personal rage. Forensic investigators noted that Latrice had fought desperately for her life, as evidenced by damage to her fingernails. During the autopsy, medical examiners recovered a condom from within her body. There were no physical injuries to suggest a sexual assault, indicating that she had engaged in consensual sexual activities shortly before her death. This discovery introduced a complex psychological element to the investigation, suggesting that the young bride was harboring a secret. By analyzing Latrice's mobile phone records, investigators discovered a high frequency of calls made and received around midnight on the night of the murder. These calls traced back to Stephen Randolph, a highly charismatic and talented student-athlete at North Carolina Central University who harbored aspirations of playing in the National Basketball Association. When questioned by detectives, Stephen initially claimed they were merely classmates. However, when confronted with the forensic findings, he admitted to a passionate, secret sexual affair with Latrice. He explained that on the night of the murder, Latrice had visited his residence, where they had engaged in consensual sexual relations. During the encounter, the condom had become lodged inside her. When they were unable to retrieve it, Latrice left his home around 10 in the evening, intending to resolve the issue at her own apartment. Stephen claimed he then drove to the apartment of his primary girlfriend, Velma Newton, where he remained until 1 in the morning. To corroborate Stephen's account, detectives interviewed his roommate, Robert Reeves, a 43-year-old pastor and highly regarded motivational speaker, known within the community as the Bishop. Reeves lived with his sister and rented a basement apartment to Stephen. The pastor presented himself as a highly cooperative, dignified witness, confirming that Latrice had visited the home that evening and that both vehicles had departed by the time he returned from a church service at 11:30. However, the case took a dramatic turn when State Trooper Isaac Cooper contacted detectives. Cooper reported that at 1:30 in the morning on January 30, he had investigated a disabled vehicle parked on the shoulder of Interstate 540, very close to the location where Latrice's body and car were later found. The license plate of that abandoned vehicle returned a direct match to Pastor Robert Reeves. When investigators brought Pastor Reeves back for questioning, they noticed deep scratches and abrasions on his arms and hands. Reeves claimed he had sustained the injuries while moving a heavy desk with Stephen. However, when detectives questioned Stephen privately, the young athlete flatly denied that any such accident had occurred. Furthermore, Stephen revealed a highly disturbing aspect of his living arrangement with the pastor. Stephen recounted that Pastor Reeves had developed a bizarre, intense obsession with him. The pastor had entered his quarters on multiple occasions, inquiring in detail about Stephen's sexual activities and eventually offering to waive his monthly rent in exchange for sexual favors. Stephen had firmly rejected these advances, but the pastor's obsession only deepened. Subsequent analysis of the pastor's phone records revealed that he had been utilizing block numbers to send a barrage of anonymous, threatening text messages to both Stephen and his girlfriend, Velma Newton, even going so far as to slash the tires on Stephen's vehicle in a fit of jealous possessiveness. In the study of criminal behavior, we refer to this as stalking by proxy, where the offender attempts to isolate their object of desire by terrorizing anyone who threatens to draw their attention away. The ultimate breakthrough in the case came from the State Forensic Laboratory. Deoxyribonucleic acid recovered from the steering wheel of Latrice's abandoned vehicle matched the profile of Pastor Robert Reeves. The scientific evidence painted a clear, terrifying picture. On the night of January 29, Pastor Reeves, consumed by a pathological jealousy of Stephen's sexual relationship with Latrice, had followed her as she departed their residence. He had utilized his status as a trusted religious figure to convince her to pull her vehicle over on the shoulder of Interstate 540. There, in a state of absolute, repressed rage, he had attacked her with a knife from his personal collection, ending her life in a brutal frenzy. On September 29, 2009, Robert Reeves stood trial for first-degree murder. The defense attempted to argue that the deoxyribonucleic acid evidence was the result of innocent transfer, suggesting that Latrice had picked up the pastor's genetic material from a household surface prior to her departure. They also attempted to cast suspicion back onto Stephen Randolph, pointing to the presence of his genetic material under Latrice's fingernails. However, the prosecution successfully demonstrated that the physical evidence, the testimony of the state trooper, the fabricated alibi, and the deep scratches on the pastor's arms left no room for reasonable doubt. On October 9, 2009, the jury found Robert Reeves guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. As we reflect on these three challenging cases, we are reminded of the profound responsibility borne by the men and women of our law enforcement agencies, whose meticulous devotion to forensic science and patient investigative techniques ensures that the truth is brought to light. Each of these narratives demonstrates that while the dark corners of the human psyche can produce acts of immense cruelty, the light of justice, guided by truth, scientific rigor, and community solidarity, will inevitably prevail, offering a solemn sanctuary of peace to those who have suffered the ultimate loss. The human heart is a complex and often volatile organ, capable of the loftiest heights of devotion and, conversely, the darkest depths of depravity. In the study of criminal psychology, we frequently observe that the transition from passion to obsession is not a sudden leap, but a slow, insidious erosion of boundaries. When an individual conflates love with ownership, the fragile ego becomes a ticking clock. The three cases presented here, spanning different regions and circumstances, serve as profound cautionary tales. They illustrate how the destructive forces of jealousy, control, and unrequited obsession can dismantle lives, and how the meticulous, relentless efforts of law enforcement officers work to restore order and deliver justice to families left in the wake of senseless tragedy. The first narrative takes us to the quiet, close-knit communities of North Texas, where a seemingly textbook romance ended in a baffling puzzle of blood, silence, and lost memories. The date was December 11th, 2004. The setting was the city of Gainesville, Texas, a normally tranquil municipality located near the Oklahoma border. Just past 4 o'clock in the morning, the quiet of a local hotel was shattered when a night manager received an alarming, disoriented call from one of the guest rooms. Sensing immediate danger, the manager walked down the darkened hallway and attempted to open the door, only to find the heavy deadbolt engaged. He called out, asking if the occupant was safe, but received no coherent response. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, the front desk worker summoned a maintenance employee who used tools to forcibly break down the door. Stepping inside the dimly lit room, the two men made a startling discovery. Lying on the floor in a crumpled, almost fetal position was a woman, alone and severely injured. The hotel room was in complete disarray, with personal belongings scattered about. The woman was slurring her words, clearly in a state of shock and physical distress. Beside her lay a .25 caliber handgun. Upon closer inspection, the responders realized she had sustained a catastrophic gunshot wound to her head, with the bullet entering just above her eye. The manager immediately dialed 911, requesting urgent emergency medical assistance. Within minutes, police officers and emergency medical technicians arrived at the scene. The atmosphere was chaotic as first responders focused on stabilizing the woman and saving her life. She was rushed to a nearby trauma center, where physicians worked to treat her life-threatening injuries. Meanwhile, investigators at the hotel began the task of piecing together the events that had transpired in that room. They discovered a bottle of alcohol and several packages of over-the-counter sleeping pills. With no one else present, the police were left to contemplate two distinct possibilities. Either the woman had attempted to take her own life, or an assailant had shot her and fled into the
night.
The mystery deepened significantly when investigators identified the injured woman as Denise Miller and realized she was connected to a missing persons report filed only 24 hours earlier in the nearby town of Little Elm, Texas. Denise and her boyfriend, a local police officer named Wayne Irby, had both vanished. Officer Irby had failed to report for his scheduled shift, an occurrence that immediately raised red flags among his colleagues who knew him as a dedicated professional who took immense pride in his uniform. To understand how a police officer and his partner ended up in such a dire situation, investigators had to look back at the history of their relationship. Denise Miller, formerly Denise Swall, had grown up in Kansas City, Missouri, where she was remembered as a popular, vivacious, and personable young woman. At the age of 22, she married her college sweetheart and later gave birth to two children, Whitney and Walter. Despite her dedication to her family, the marriage eventually dissolved in 1995. Seeking a fresh start and a clean slate, Denise, then 36 years old, relocated her family to the growing Dallas suburb of Little Elm, Texas. She secured a successful position with a regional liquor distributor, managed her finances prudently, and built a beautiful home for her children. In 2003, her life took an unexpected turn when Officer Wayne Irby knocked on her door to advise her that her garage door had been left open, warning her of recent neighborhood thefts. Wayne, a 37-year-old, 6-year veteran of the Little Elm Police Department, was known as a charismatic, outgoing officer who genuinely enjoyed interacting with the public. The brief encounter sparked a mutual attraction. Soon after, Wayne returned to ask Denise on a date. The chemistry was immediate, and they quickly became an exclusive couple. Wayne, also a divorced parent, bonded exceptionally well with Denise's children, and for a time, they resembled a happy, unified family. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly ideal romance, psychological friction was beginning to develop. Denise possessed a deeply rooted fear of abandonment, which manifested as intense jealousy. She grew increasingly suspicious of Wayne's interactions with other women on his police beat.
Wayne
was a naturally friendly and handsome man, and his professional duties required him to interact with many citizens, some of whom spoke of him highly. Denise began confronting him with accusations of infidelity, which Wayne vehemently denied. These constant allegations began to erode the foundation of trust in their relationship. In the spring of 2004, hoping to solidify their commitment and move past their difficulties, the couple purchased a house together. Yet sharing a home did not alleviate Denise's anxieties. The arguments intensified, and Wayne eventually decided that the relationship had become too turbulent to sustain. He moved into a separate rental home across town when Denise unexpectedly lost her job in November of that year. Wayne, demonstrating a compassionate nature, returned to help support her and the children, attempting to work through their differences once more. This reconciliation was short-lived. On the morning of December 10th, 2004, Wayne failed to arrive at the police department for his 6:00 morning briefing. This was entirely uncharacteristic for Wayne, who was always early and meticulously prepared. His colleague, Cynthia Medrano, grew deeply concerned and notified the chief of police. The chief dispatched officers to conduct a welfare check at the residence Wayne shared with Denise. Upon arrival, officers found the house locked, with no vehicles in the driveway. Investigators located Denise's children and learned they had not seen their mother or Wayne in nearly 24 hours. Her daughter, Whitney, recalled receiving a brief, unusual phone call from her mother around midnight, in which Denise claimed to be running errands and uncharacteristically repeated her love for the children, instructing them to get ready for school on their own. When Whitney tried to call her mother back the following morning, the calls went directly to voicemail. With both Wayne and Denise missing, the search intensified. Wayne's partner, Jerry Walker, and Officer James Wynn decided to check the rental home that Wayne had recently vacated. Utilizing a key obtained from the landlord, they entered the quiet house. In the kitchen, they found Wayne's fanny pack and his cellular phone, items he never left behind. Moving down the hallway, Officer Wynn peered into a room and stopped, instructing Walker to remain back. Lying on the floor was Wayne Irby, deceased from a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. The absence of defensive wounds or signs of a struggle suggested he had been shot from behind, entirely unaware of the impending threat. The discovery of Wayne's body transformed the missing persons case into a homicide investigation. The primary question on the minds of the investigators was the whereabouts and safety of Denise Miller. Given her sudden disappearance, they feared she might also be a victim of the same assailant. However, as crime scene investigators processed the home Denise and Wayne shared, they discovered a handwritten note in the master bedroom. The letter, penned by Denise, indicated a state of deep despair and suggested she was contemplating ending her life. Furthermore, investigators noticed that while Wayne's police uniforms were hanging in the closet, his duty belt was on the wall with an empty holster. His service weapon was missing. Inquiries into the couple's history revealed a domestic violence complaint Denise had filed against Wayne in December of 2003. In that incident, Denise had arrived unannounced at Wayne's rental home and discovered another woman's purse on the table. A violent confrontation ensued, resulting in physical injuries to both parties, with Wayne sustaining significant scratches.
And a black eye.
Denise later withdrew the complaint, admitting she had fabricated the details out of anger. This historical context painted a portrait of a volatile dynamic characterized by high emotional stakes and reactive behavior. The investigation reached a critical juncture when a second note was discovered on the kitchen island of Wayne's rental home, where his body lay. This note, also in Denise's handwriting, read, "I'm sorry, I took both of our lives. Please contact our moms." This document operated as a written confession, indicating that Denise had shot Wayne and intended to take her own life. The police broadcasted a nationwide bulletin for Denise and her vehicle, fearing she remained armed and dangerous. The search concluded at the hotel in Gainesville, where Denise was found, suffering from the self-inflicted wound. In her hotel room, investigators located Wayne's missing .40 caliber service pistol. An examination of the weapon revealed that she had attempted to load it, but had mistakenly inserted the cartridge backward, causing the mechanism to jam. She had then utilized her stepfather's .25 caliber handgun to shoot herself in the head. They also found a third, much longer note in the room. In this final letter, Denise claimed that the shooting of Wayne had been an accident, asserting that she had panicked and fled. At the hospital, Texas Ranger Tracy Murphy attempted to interview Denise. Despite her critical condition, she was able to speak, though her cognitive abilities were severely compromised. When questioned about Wayne, Denise displayed profound confusion, denying that she had harmed him and expressing shock at the assertion that he was dead. Medical professionals noted that the trauma to her brain, combined with the ingestion of alcohol and medication, had resulted in significant cognitive and physical deficits, including partial paralysis and blindness in one eye. Some investigators wondered if her memory loss was a psychological defense mechanism or a conscious effort to avoid accountability, though the physical damage to her brain was undeniably real. On January 18, 2005, Denise Miller was formally charged with first-degree murder. Following 18 months of extensive physical therapy and rehabilitation, she was deemed competent to stand trial. Her trial began on July 10, 2006, in the Denton County Courthouse. Denise appeared in court in a wheelchair, presenting a frail and weakened state. The prosecution argued that Denise was a possessive partner who refused to allow Wayne to end the relationship. They contended that on the night of December 9, 2004, she went to his rental home armed with her stepfather's .25 caliber handgun. When Wayne turned his back, she fired the fatal shot to counter the defense's assertion that the shooting was an accidental discharge. The prosecution presented findings from the state crime lab. Testing revealed that the .25 caliber handgun possessed a significant trigger pull weight, requiring 4.5 to 5 pounds of pressure to discharge, which strongly contradicted the theory of an accidental firing. Furthermore, The prosecution emphasized that rather than calling for medical assistance after the shooting, Denise took Wayne's service weapon, wrote a confession, and fled. The defense focused on the third note, arguing that her written words prior to her suicide attempt represented a genuine dying declaration of an accident. They suggested that the lack of a fully loaded weapon indicated a lack of premeditation. After less than an hour of deliberation on July 12, 2006, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. At the sentencing phase, despite her severe physical disabilities, the jury sentenced Denise Miller to 62 years in prison, a term effectively equivalent to a life sentence. The tragedy left two families devastated, demonstrating how the toxic combination of unresolved insecurity and access to firearms can turn a standard domestic dispute into a double tragedy. Our second narrative shifts to the bustling metropolis of Houston, Texas, in the spring of 2007. It is a case that highlights the dark reality of extreme possessiveness and the lengths to which an obsessed individual will go to assert control over another human being. On Wednesday, March 21st, 2007, at approximately 5:30 in the afternoon, investigator Sidney Miller and his partner were driving along a highway north of Houston. In the back seat of their vehicle sat a passenger who was directing them to a specific location in connection with the disappearance of 19-year-old college freshman Tanisha Stewart. Tanisha had been reported missing since March 15, 2007. Following the passenger's instructions, the detectives entered the parking lot of an apartment complex and approached a commercial dumpster. Upon inspecting the container, they found it entirely empty, with no immediate evidence of human remains. The search for Tanisha would require investigators to navigate a complex web of relationships, jealousy, and ultimately a confession of unimaginable cruelty. Tanisha Stewart grew up in a challenging Houston neighborhood, the child of a single mother after her father passed away when she was young. Despite these difficulties, Tanisha excelled academically and was regarded by her family as a motivated, promising young woman. Her academic achievements culminated in a scholarship to Texas Agricultural and Mechanical University. In May of 2005, while working at a local pizza restaurant, 17-year-old Tanisha met 25-year-old Timothy Shepard. Despite the 8-year age difference, they began dating. Tim made significant efforts to ingratiate himself with Tanisha's family, helping with household chores and repairs and earning their trust. When Tanisha moved to the university campus, located approximately 2 hours from Houston, the distance put a strain on their relationship. 3 months into her first semester, Tim briefly ended the relationship to pursue a former girlfriend, but soon regretted the decision and traveled to the university to reconcile with Tanisha. Upon their reconciliation, however, Tanisha had begun to develop a greater sense of independence, expanding her social circle and focusing on her future. When Tanisha returned to Houston for spring break in March of 2007, She spent time with her friends and planned to attend a concert. Her family noticed that Tim seemed increasingly frustrated by her busy schedule and her growing independence. On Sunday, March 18, 2007, Tanisha's sister, Gayla, received a call from their mother, who revealed that no one had heard from Tanisha since Thursday. She had failed to attend the concert and was not answering her phone, a behavior completely out of character for the responsible student. The family filed a missing persons report on Monday, March 19th. Investigators contacted Timothy Shepard, as he was one of the last individuals to have seen her. Tim voluntarily came to the police station for questioning. He stated that he had picked Tanisha up early on Thursday morning. He claimed that while they were in his vehicle, Tanisha received a phone call from a male classmate, Mark Marks, which sparked a verbal argument. Tim alleged that after they arrived at his apartment, the argument resumed when they woke up later that morning. According to Tim, Tanisha refused to discuss the matter, walked out of his apartment on foot, and he had not seen her since. Tim provided written consent for officers to search his apartment. The initial search revealed no obvious signs of a struggle or foul play, and with no legal grounds to detain him, investigators allowed him to leave. They then focused their attention on Mark Marks, the young man who had called Tanisha. Mark Marks cooperated fully with the investigation. He admitted that he and Tanisha had been dating for approximately a month, and that Tanisha had expressed a desire to end her relationship with Tim. Mark provided a verified alibi, proving he was attending a gathering with friends on South Padre Island at the time of Tanisha's disappearance, completely exonerating him of any involvement. With both primary associates seemingly cleared, investigators worried that Tanisha might have been abducted by a stranger after leaving Tim's apartment. They conducted a search of the wooded areas surrounding the apartment complex. During the search, a neighbor reported hearing gunshots on the night of the disappearance, prompting the dispatch of a canine unit. The search dog alerted to a scent in the woods, but the source was determined to be the remains of a small animal. As the days passed without progress, Tanisha's sister organized volunteer search parties. During their canvassing, several neighbors reported highly unusual behavior by Timothy Shepard in the days following Tanisha's disappearance. They noted that Tim had been operating 2 barbecue grills continuously over the weekend, generating an extraordinary amount of smoke that eventually prompted residents to contact the fire department. First responders who arrived to contain the smoke reported seeing a large quantity of meat, which Tim claimed was being prepared for a church gathering of up to 200 people. One firefighter recalled seeing what appeared to be raw meat soaking in a bathtub inside the apartment. Furthermore, another neighbor reported seeing Tim pouring an exceptional amount of bleach onto his outdoor patio, creating a scent so strong that it irritated the neighbor's eyes. These reports, combined with Tanisha's history with Tim, shifted the focus of the investigation squarely back onto him. Family members revealed that Tim had become increasingly controlling and possessive and had previously made threats and physically assaulted Tanisha when she attempted to distance herself. Desperate for answers, Tanisha's family contacted Quannell X, a well-known community activist. Quannell, who had also been contacted by Tim's family to ensure Tim's safety during the police inquiry, arranged a private meeting with Tim at his apartment. During their conversation in the apartment's bathroom, Quannell confronted Tim, urging him to tell the truth. Tim broke down, admitting that he had flown into a jealous rage when Tanisha refused to discuss her relationship with Mark Marks. He confessed that he had strangled her to death as she attempted to leave the apartment. Tim initially told Quannell that he had placed her body in a commercial dumpster behind the complex. Quannell immediately contacted investigator Sidney Miller to report the confession. When authorities arrived at the dumpster, they discovered it had been recently emptied. The waste had already been transported to a massive regional landfill. Investigators estimated that a search of the landfill would cost several $100,000 with a very low probability of success, and Tanisha's family advised the sheriff not to exhaust public resources on the search. Following his arrest, Tim Shepard invoked his right to legal counsel and refused to speak further with investigators. To build a strong prosecution without a body, crime scene investigators conducted a highly detailed forensic examination of Tim's apartment. In the kitchen, they dismantled the sink plumbing and discovered small bone fragments and tooth enamel inside the garbage disposal. Forensic analysis confirmed that the enamel matched Tanisha's dental records. Investigators also recovered charred bone fragments near the outdoor grill. The physical evidence, combined with the testimony of neighbors and firefighters, suggested a far more gruesome method of disposal than Tim had initially claimed. A grand jury indicted Timothy Shepard for murder, and the trial commenced on September 29, 2008. The prosecution presented a circumstantial case, relying heavily on the forensic matching of the tooth enamel and the testimony of Quannell X. They also called Tim's cousin, Nicholas Shepard, who testified that Tim had previously made statements suggesting that if a partner ever tried to leave him, he would resort to extreme violence to ensure no one else could be with her. During the sentencing phase, Timothy Shepard took the witness stand and claimed he had acted in self-defense, asserting that Tanisha had attacked him with a knife during their argument and that he had blacked out while attempting to restrain her. However, his attempts to minimize his culpability were undermined when prosecutors questioned him about the disposal of her remains. Tim admitted to utilizing a smoker to incinerate her body over several days. The jury rejected the self-defense claim, upholding the guilty verdict.
Timothy
Shepard was sentenced to 99 years in prison, the maximum penalty
allowed.
The case serves as a tragic reminder of the extreme dangers of domestic control and the critical importance of recognizing early warning signs of obsessive behavior in relationships. Our third and final narrative brings us to the state of North Carolina in early 2008, unfolding in a world where professional prestige, religious authority, and secret desires converged with fatal consequences. On Wednesday, January 30th, 2008, at approximately 7:30 in the morning commuters traveling along Interstate 540 in Raleigh, North Carolina, observed what appeared to be a body lying in the grass beside the roadway. Emergency services were immediately dispatched to the location. First responders discovered the body of a young woman who had been brutally assaulted. She had sustained more than 40 stab wounds concentrated around her face, neck, and upper torso. Her injuries were severe, with major blood vessels severed, indicating an attack of extreme violence and personal animosity. There was no ID on her person, and no weapon was found at the immediate scene. Approximately half a mile further down the highway, an accounting student named Darren Curtis was driving to work when he noticed traffic backing up due to the police activity. As he passed the scene, he spotted a white vehicle parked on the shoulder of the interstate. Recognizing the car as belonging to his wife, Latrice, Darren panicked, returned to the scene, and spoke with detectives, who confirmed that the deceased woman was indeed his 21-year-old wife,
Latrice Curtis.
Latrice Curtis was a well-liked business administration student at North Carolina Central University in Durham, having married Darren just 9 months prior. Her father and brothers were devastated by the news, unable to comprehend who would target her with such ferocity. Meticulous processing of the scene revealed that Latrice had fought back vigorously against her attacker, as evidenced by damage to her fingernails. Crime scene investigators collected DNA samples from beneath her fingernails and from the steering wheel of her abandoned vehicle. An autopsy revealed a key piece of forensic evidence. A condom was recovered from inside Latrice's body. The medical examiner found no physical trauma to her genital area, suggesting the sexual encounter preceding her death had been consensual. This discovery introduced a complicated element to the investigation, suggesting that Latrice may have been involved in an extramarital relationship. Investigators interviewed Darren Curtis, who stated that he last spoke with his wife at approximately 10 o'clock the previous evening, when she called to say she was running late from her classes and planned to get food. Darren had gone to sleep and assumed she had stayed at her family's home when she did not return. A physical examination of Darren revealed no scratches, cuts, or bruises that would suggest participation in a violent struggle, and a search of their apartment and his vehicle yielded no evidence to identify the individual Latrice had met that night. Detectives subpoenaed her cellular phone records. They discovered a high volume of communication between Latrice and a phone number registered to Stephen Randolph, a prominent basketball player at North Carolina Central University who harbored aspirations of playing in the National Basketball Association. Stephen Randolph voluntarily contacted the sheriff's department, accompanied by his roommate and landlord, a well-known local pastor named Robert Reeves. During questioning, Stephen initially claimed he and Latrice were merely classmates who studied together. However, when confronted with the forensic findings from the autopsy, Stephen admitted that they had been engaged in a secret sexual relationship. He explained that on the night of the murder, Latrice had visited his residence. During their encounter, the condom became lodged inside her. Stephen claimed that Latrice left his home around 10 o'clock in the evening, and he shortly thereafter drove to the residence of his primary girlfriend, Velma Newton. Stephen stated that Latrice called him repeatedly near midnight, expressing anxiety about a potential pregnancy. Investigators interviewed Velma Newton, who confirmed Stephen's alibi, stating he arrived at her apartment around 10 o'clock and left around 1 o'clock in the morning. However, Velma also revealed that she and Stephen had recently been subjected to numerous anonymous, threatening phone calls demanding they end their relationship. Additionally, Stephen's vehicle had recently had all 4 tires slashed. The investigation took a significant turn when investigators spoke with State Trooper Isaac Cooper. Cooper reported that at approximately 1:30 on the morning of January 30th, he had observed 2 vehicles parked with hazard lights flashing on opposite shoulders of Interstate 540. One was a white car matching Latrice's vehicle, while the other was registered to Pastor Robert Reeves. Detectives brought Pastor Reeves in for further questioning. Reeves, a 43-year-old influential religious leader, often referred to as the bishop, claimed he had been attending a church service on the night of the murder and had remained home afterward, suggesting Stephen must have borrowed his vehicle. However, investigators interviewed Reeves's sister, who attended the same church, and she stated she had not seen her brother at the service. Furthermore, detectives observed several scratches and abrasions on Reeves's hands and arms. Reeves claimed he had sustained the injuries while moving a heavy desk with Stephen, but when questioned separately, Stephen had no recollection of any such incident. Reeves agreed to provide a DNA sample for comparison. Stephen Randolph then revealed to investigators that Pastor Reeves had recently displayed an inappropriate and highly intrusive interest in his personal life. Stephen claimed that after learning of Latrice's visits, Reeves had made unsolicited sexual propositions to him, offering to waive his rent in exchange for sexual favors. Stephen had rejected the advances. Investigators analyzed Pastor Reeves's phone records and discovered that the anonymous, blocked threatening calls received by Stephen and Velma had originated from Reeves's phone. This established a psychological motive of intense jealousy. Reeves was infatuated with Stephen and sought to eliminate anyone who drew Stephen's attention away from him. The forensic results from the state crime lab provided the final link. DNA matching Robert Reeves was recovered from the interior of Latrice's vehicle. Investigators concluded that on the night of January 29th, Reeves had followed Latrice from his residence, used his authority or a pretext of assistance to compel her to pull over on the interstate, and carried out the attack in a fit of jealous rage. On February 2nd, 2008, Robert Reeves was arrested and charged. with first-degree murder. His trial began on September 29, 2009. The prosecution presented the DNA evidence, the state troopers' vehicles citing the scratched arms and the history of threatening phone calls, to paint a portrait of an obsessed individual living a double life. The defense argued that Stephen Randolph had a stronger motive to kill Latrice, to protect his professional sports career from an unwanted pregnancy, pointing out that Stephen's DNA was recovered from under the victim's fingernails. The prosecution countered that Stephen's DNA was present due to their intimate contact earlier that evening, whereas Reeves's presence on the interstate and the extensive physical evidence pointed directly to his guilt. On October 9, 2009, the jury found Robert Reeves guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The resolution of the case brought a somber sense of justice to Latrice's